Let's bring it down to electric vehicles. Now, sales of electric vehicles have been growing. They've been growing at a rapid pace. Their share of the global car market has risen from around 4% in the year 2020 to 14% in 2022. And India has also been in that fast lane when it comes to the EV segment. The government is trying to push the EV business with FAME 2 and PLI schemes as well. And more players, as they come into existence, the competition is heating up. But the question remains, are these efforts enough to boost the industry? Why has the Indian consumer still not warmed up enough to EV cars? Lack of infrastructure like charging points, service centers, not too many. They continue to know EV makers and customers alike. And now one of the major players has taken its investment to another country. Tata Group is planning to set up this £4 billion gigafactory in the United Kingdom. So should one wonder why the conglomerate has chosen Britain over India? After all, when Make in India is such a buzzword, we have to delve into it. And this discussion is something we'll get into. But after this short exclusive ET Now report on the government's plans to revise GST on retrofitted electric vehicles. This is my colleague Sameer's report.
The important development that we are getting to know from our sources is related to the electric vehicle industry. The government is considering to lower the GST rates on the retrofitment of petrol vehicles to electric vehicles. Currently, the retrofitment of a petrol vehicle to an electric vehicle, it attracts a GST of 18%, whereas when you buy a new electric vehicle, then only 5% GST is levied. That is the reason that government is looking to rationalize the GST on the retrofitment. And the Ministry of Road Transport is working on this proposal, which is likely to be sent to the Finance Ministry very soon. Thereafter, it will be sent to the GST Council. Not only this, the Minister for the Road Transport Ministry, Nitin Gadkari, has also given in principle approval to this entire concept that this retrofitment, then GST on this retrofitment should be reduced to just around 5%. Now, why this move? Basically, government understands that if the GST is rationalized or reduced on the retrofitment, the whole ecosystem, then there are two big advantages. First is that currently, if you see, there are a very large number of old petrol vehicles that can be easily converted to electric vehicle, and this will give push to electric mobility in the country. Not only this, the affordability of an electric vehicle will be much easier for a common man. Currently, if you buy a new EV, a new electric vehicle, the cost is very high. And that is the reason that the wider acceptance of electric vehicle is still a challenge. So retrofitment of a petrol vehicle or an old petrol engine car to an electric car will help to push e-mobility in the country. Now, talking about the retrofitment, it basically means that replacing the petrol engine with an electric powertrain. And if you talk about the cost part, so usually converting of a two-wheeler to an electric vehicle, it costs somewhere around 20,000 to 40,000 or 50,000, whereas for three-wheeler, it costs somewhere around 50 to 70,000. Whereas for four-wheeler, 1,000 cc and above, it attracts a cost of around rupees 2.5 lakh for the retrofitment. So the government understands that the retrofitment is good for pushing e-mobility in the country, and to make this much more easier, then GST should be rationalized, and the proposal is being worked on, which is very soon to be sent to the Finance Ministry. And if everything goes well, then this will be very big relief for the industry players who are there in the retrofitment segment.
It's good for the retrofitment business, like Sameer is pointing out, but the question is, why can't we sell fresh EV cars? Why are we talking about retrofitting it, and why are incentives being given right now for retrofitment? Because perhaps that takes away from the growth of the industry. Let's understand the roadblocks, if any, towards the EV push in India. So for that, our panel is here. Group Business Editor of Autocar India, Ketan Thakkar, is with us, along with Associate Director at S&P Global Mobility, Gaurav Vangaal, is with us too. And co-founder at RACEnergy, Arun Sreyas, along with Kranti Sambhav, the editor and lead at Times Drive. Gentlemen, good evening and a very warm welcome to this edition of the India Development Debate. We're glad you could join us this evening. As far as, what we are seeing as far as the possibilities in retrofitment are concerned, and Gaurav, I want to come to you with this. This is, of course, source-based information, and we understand that the proposal has gone from the Transport Ministry to the Finance Ministry for approval. But be that as it may, would you think that reducing GST from 18 to 5% is actually going to help many people who haven't made that transition into making that decision to buy an electric vehicle? Would they opt and go ahead and say, yeah, let's retrofit my car? Do you see that happening? Is this incentive going to work?
Vikram, I don't think that this is going to work because retrofitment is a concept. I think we have also heard recently on the diesel vehicles in Delhi. But I think there's always a doubt about the retrofitment warranties and the how much it is going to run. The range anxiety reason is already there with the fresh cars. I really doubt that it is going to pick up. I really doubt that it can help in the EV transformation any. So the government can definitely offer, they can bring a platter for the consumer to opt for the electric vehicles, but I really doubt this the success of this retrofitment.
Ketan Thakkar, why don't you come in on this? Because the news about lower GST on retrofitted electric vehicles comes on a day when we're also learning about the Tatas setting up an EV battery manufacturing plant in Britain. I know that Spain was in contention for what turns out to be this $4 billion EV battery plant. But don't you think that India missed out on an opportunity here?
Well, Vikram, not really, because, UK is the home base for the marquee brands Jaguar and Land Rover. So it was almost a given that you're going to have a battery or a cell manufacturing facility close to where the vehicles are getting manufactured. Majority of Jaguar Land Rovers are produced out of UK and exported around the world, barring a base in Eastern Europe and in China. In Brazil and India, you only have the assembly bases. So it was almost a given that you got to have a cell or battery manufacturing facility close to where the vehicle is getting manufactured, and it was just a matter of time. What is the kind of incentive that they were going to get, whether in Europe or in UK. I think, this is just a start, given the fact that, the brand is moving to all EV for Jaguar by 2025 and almost 80% of its portfolio moving to EVs by end of the decade. I think you're going to see much more investment coming from the group in UK and in the other parts of the world as well. In India also, they have set up this entity called Tata Agratas, where they've committed about $1.3 billion. So even in India, they are investing. So you got to be close to where the manufacturing base is, and hence the decision is, I would consider, fair to be in UK.
Ketan, just as an extension of that question, as far as Tata Motors is concerned, being the leading EV player in India, do you see other manufacturers also going ahead with their plans to set up these battery manufacturing units in the country?
I think so. I mean, it's the core of an electric vehicle. A battery is a core of electric vehicle, and already Government of India has come out with the PLI scheme for the cell manufacturing as well. You are definitely going to see billions of dollars being committed in the Indian market or anywhere else in the world. I mean, cell manufacturing is going to be a critical element. You do expect, a deeper localization. Already battery assembly and battery manufacturing is happening, but cells are getting imported. Eventually, you expect cell localization as well. And I think the opportunity of investing in that space is huge. It's probably hundreds of billions of dollars.
Arun Sreyas, your company, RACEnergy, builds these holistic technology solutions, but they're restricted, I know, to two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Why haven't you expanded to passenger vehicles? I ask you this because just look at the way we've taken to electric two-wheelers in the country. There are many more than cars. Is it the high prices, you think? Is it the range anxiety? Is it the plain and simple, the quality of the EVs that we make, which doesn't necessarily refer to the make of the vehicles, but also the quality of the batteries that are used? So why are we slow on the uptake when it comes to electric cars in India? You yourself haven't ventured into that territory, have you?
Thanks, Vikram. I think at Race, we are a battery swapping company. So what we build is swappable batteries. Now, I'm mentioning this because this kind of addresses all the key problems that you mentioned: the range anxiety, long charging times, the lack of charging infrastructure. Most people cannot really firstly afford to own an EV, which is because it's very expensive. And even the folks that do own an EV usually have it as a second car. To own an EV, you need to have like a proper, charging point at your apartment or your house, which is not really convenient for most Indian population. So that's where we've come up with the battery swapping solution. And in fact, before, like Samir had mentioned, the prices of retrofitment kits that he was mentioning for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheelers, these are all with a swapping solution. In a swapping solution, you do not sell the battery upfront, and that's the reason why he was quoting such less prices. And so what we're trying to do is sort of, get all of these things together, provide a very cheap solution to a two-wheeler or three-wheeler driver. Four-wheeler is a natural progression later on. We just felt like, this is the progression that we need to take up with technology. And we've also felt that the most value proposition that we can offer to our customers is in these segments, in the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segments, because these are the segments where the drivers generally come from lower income groups. And also a lot of times, like, food delivery startups, auto rickshaw drivers, like passenger auto rickshaw drivers, these drivers do not have any time at all or the money to kind of spend on the EVs. And therefore, we're providing this battery swapping solution, which kind of mirrors the whole petroleum experience. It hardly takes 2 minutes to swap. And we've done a whole bunch of retrofitments already. We are, in fact, the largest retrofitment player in the country, which deploy on our swappable battery packs. And we do about 500 battery swaps every single day. So yeah, I think it's just the early days, and then I think the uptick is going to happen pretty soon.
Kranti Sambhav, do you agree that this is the natural course of progression when you talk about the adoption of a technology, the adoption of products connected with that technology? We've started with the smaller vehicles and now we'll grow into the big ones. Is that the natural course that you've seen other countries take as well when it comes to adoption of electric mobility? How does this actually work out? Because as far as Arun Sreyas is pointing out, it takes cheaper solutions. His company delivers that. Is that what India needs, considering that we are a very price-sensitive market? So those incentives eventually have to boil down to how cheaply you can deliver that new technology.
Thanks, Vikram. But I think we have to approach this EV adoption and EV conversation. I mean, we generally approach it from an angle that we assume that the EV market should have been established by this time. It hasn't. But if we look at the market, if we look at the products which we have, the infrastructure, it is not as fast as we expected it to be. One of the key, I guess, contrast in this market is that when you look at electric mobility or electric products, the biggest, the two-wheeler market. Two-wheeler, three-wheeler market, we have seen value for money, cheaper, affordable products which are run by batteries. They are being bought, and customers are using it. But in the case of four-wheelers, most of the customers are going for, or most of the manufacturers are, pretty comfortable bringing the product in a premium range. One of the biggest reasons why this adoption is not as fast as we thought it would be in India, because number one car maker, Maruti Suzuki, hasn't brought any electric vehicle till now. And if you remember, they were thinking of getting the WagonR counterpart with electric motor, but now they are bringing their EVX, which everyone is expecting to be 20 lakh plus. So what we are seeing in two-wheeler segment, the cheaper, more affordable products are being bought. At the same time, in the car segment, what we're seeing is most of the action is happening at the top end, or maybe the premium end, mostly because of the battery price. One more point which I wanted to add was the battery swapping thing, which was not so easy or convenient for cars, is because if you look at two-wheelers and three-wheelers, the battery position, the battery design and engineering is relatively easier. But in the case of cars, it's kind of complex, and it's not very easy to work on that mechanism. And I think most of the manufacturers, they develop it like in a very, most of the R&D is happening in a very isolated, unique manner, and most of the shapes are different. So that is one challenge which I don't think will move to the four-wheeler segment.
Well, that points towards a certain amount of standardization that needs to come in as well. And since we are at a nascent stage, Gaurav, do you see that happening when it comes to policy thrust, both at the center and the state level in building EV infrastructure, not least of which would be fast charging stations? Only last year, we reduced GST on electric vehicles from 12% to 5%. We brought down GST on chargers and charging stations for electric vehicles from 18 to 5%. But the question is that good enough? Because of the kind of way the market has been functioning in India, like was being pointed out by Kranti, from the kind of uptick that we've seen among two-wheelers to the action that we are seeing at the higher end of the EV cars market, what is it going to take for more traction within EV vehicles? But of course, as far as cars go, we haven't seen that kind of move. Why is that so not picking up right now? In your understanding, what is it going to take?
First thing I would say that there are very little products are available for the consumers. Indian consumers are very smart, okay, and they know the economies. Right now, I think we don't have much products in the market, while Indian consumers are also tilting towards the hybrid vehicles. So one, range anxiety is already a problem in the mind of the Indian consumer. So I think what we are looking for is from the next year, from 2024, when Maruti Suzuki, as Kranti has just mentioned, that there's no product from the leader in the market. From the next year, I think we can see the multiple launches from the Maruti Suzuki, Tata Motors, and the Mahindra. When the product action is going to happen in the market, I think that will bring the consumer onto the car side also. And one very interesting thing happening is the PLI segment. Right now, PLI is running some bit delayed, but I think that from the next year, we can see that some of the movements is happening. And today, car industry is highly indulged towards the investment. Today, what we have learned from the Tata Motors investing at UK, we can see multiple investments going forward in the next couple of years in Indian market too. We are working, the industries at the background, they're working that on the production lines, they're working how to design the car, they're working on the powertrain, they're working on the vehicle architecture. Right now, we're in the development stage, but in the next 2 to 3 years, you will see that multiple product action will happen, and then the consumer will start looking at us for the next generation vehicles.
Choice is missing, and that could be one of the key reasons. But why choice is missing is also because some of the leaders of the pack haven't been investing enough so far. Arun Sreyas, the national capital, has introduced these public charging facilities for electric vehicles and battery swapping facilities. Perhaps we need to see a more uniform growth in the infrastructure for EVs to become the first choice for consumers. And also, when you talk about uniformity, standardization, it comes within the EV ecosystem when it comes to even like charging sockets. Since we are at a nascent stage, I've seen in America where these Tesla cars, they go to these charging stations. But when it comes to other cars outside the Tesla ecosystem, they cannot use the same charging stations. Of course, a majority of them in California, where I was, were Tesla cars. But it doesn't really help the cause of the growth of the industry if every car manufacturer is going to use different sockets. Do you see that problem?
Yeah, firstly, I think just on the price perspective, which it was earlier being discussed, I think the price has to come down, and a lot of investments have to happen in this particular space. In that regard, we are also like kind of investing, and everybody's investing in sort of developing better products, and I think it's going to happen with scale as well, kind of bringing the price down. We ourselves again invested recently in our own manufacturing facility, brought the whole battery manufacturing in-house, which could produce about 30,000 batteries per year. We're planning to cater to about 80,000 vehicles by 2025. All of this is sort of going to help bring the prices down significantly, and then sort of help adoption better. Now, second point that you asked about on the infrastructure side, standardization on the charging sockets is important, but it's not as easy as one would think. It comes with a lot of complications, and currently given, and you look at Tesla, like Tesla went their own way, so they could bring out their own network, and that's what kind of propelled the sales as well. And right now it's kind of nascent stage, so we ourselves have our own standard with our batteries and everything that is able to sort of grow the demand for the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment that we're addressing. So firstly, it's a technical challenge to kind of decide on what standards you're going to decide on, because it's very too early right now. You don't want to cap it and sort of limit the what sort of connector you want to do it, and limit the development of the technology, which could potentially in the future also bring the cost down. So that's one limitation that is there. And secondly, also it's kind of hard, especially with swapping. It's really hard to have one particular standard, because you've got different kinds of batteries that are working together. It's a technical risk as well that's associated with it. But I think just the sort of investments into the space, having larger manufacturing facilities, investing more into R&D. That's what we at Race are also doing. We're constantly seeing decrease in the cost. We're reducing the cost of our products by a good 20% year on year. And I think we're just getting started with this particular space.
That's probably the need of the hour. But Kranti, when it comes to just taking away from what Arun is saying, when it comes to battery technology and supply chain, we clearly need to up our game when it comes to the production of these lithium-ion batteries, the key component of electric vehicles. And of course, those require specific minerals and specific rare earth elements. Right now, we rely heavily on imports for battery manufacturing. It leads to supply chain challenges. We've seen the kind of problem we had during the pandemic, but of course, that was a worldwide phenomenon. But the situation is no different when, like these days, China has decided to put strictures on exports of rare earth elements. It hampers growth of the EV industry, and quite significantly. How do you think India should negotiate that kind of problem?
We are, I think, in the process of working on our battery capacity. And most of the manufacturers, they have, if you look at the progression or the conversation around EVs, what we saw, everyone started talking about the electric vehicles during maybe the pandemic, it just accelerated. Everyone didn't expect that this adoption would be this fast. So now the manufacturers have started their thinking, or they've kind of understood. Now they're convinced that now, yes, Indian customers are going to buy EVs. One of the biggest factor, I would say, is Tata Nexon. That kind of changed the mindset. So everyone is working, but at the same time, as we saw in the case of Tata Motors in UK, so it takes time. So, for example, Maruti Suzuki or Suzuki is also working on the same thing. Tata Motors is working on the same thing. So everyone is trying to build the battery capacity. Everyone knows that import of cells and then manufacturing of batteries, it is happening. But most of the manufacturers in India, if you talk to them one-to-one, everyone is the biggest concern is the battery. And since we are kind of in momentum right now, we can see that momentum. I think in 2 to 3 years, we might see tremendous growth in the battery production and battery capacity of India.
One would hope so, but Ketan, what about the competitive landscape? How is that shaping up in India's EV business? Tata, Mahindra, Hyundai, MG, of course, Audi, all of them, they have skin in the game when it comes to EV cars. Tata clearly at pole position right now. We are not seeing Maruti there at all. Tata, of course, leads in electric vehicles with more than 80% of the market share from just 2 of their models, the Nexon and the Tigor EV. But tell us about the landscape. How is that likely to change? What's going to change the landscape of the winners and laggards in EV sales? And if Big Daddy Tesla enters the Indian market, how much will it shake things up?
Well, like Gaurav mentioned, I guess somewhere around 25 is when we're going to see models coming in from Mahindra and Mahindra. Mahindra has lined up about a half a dozen EVs. Tata Motors, on its part, has already committed for 10 EVs by 2025, 2026. Apart from that, you're going to see Hyundai entering the space, Kia entering the space, and you're also going to see many models coming in from the likes of Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi. So market is going to be flushed with almost like a couple of dozen models. And sometimes that's exactly what you need, like how Gaurav mentioned, more models bring in a lot more excitement in the marketplace. And along with that, you'll also start seeing the scale. And one of the biggest factor you asked about adoption was also what I feel is the cost factor and a significant high imports. With more and more models coming in, with the adoption will increase. With adoption, the scale will increase. With scale and with the PLI benefits coming in, I guess somewhere around 26, 27, this market will be on the cusp of a takeoff. I think that is when I see an inflection point hitting when it comes to cars. We've already seen a sort of a scale emerging in two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Even there, the scale is becoming bigger. So with more localization, battery costs will go down. With that, the scale will grow and cost will come down and the adoption will grow. So I think it's a matter of next 3 to 4 years when you'll start seeing the entire EV ecosystem and the consumer actually participating into this game.
3 to 4 years, you're saying we'll still have to wait and decide exactly the kind of decision that wants to make when it comes to buying cars. As far as EVs are concerned, we're looking at hybrid models right now sometimes. We're also looking at regular fueled cars. As far as choices go, there are many more in that space than there are. So we have to wait for the choices and the cost to come down for this market to really take off. And that is something that we are watching very closely, because the potential, like everyone says, is huge. It's massive as far as India's take on electric mobility is concerned. We will keep watching that entire space. And for the moment, Kranti, Gaurav, Ketan and Arun, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this edition of India Development Debate. And thank you, viewers, for joining us tonight. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Until then, do take care. Bye-bye.